In the shadows where law dares not tread, there exists an elite class of criminals whose wealth eclipsed nations. Their empire wasn't built on innovation or industry, but on blood, fear, and an insatiable hunger for power. Four men, separated by oceans and decades, redefined what it meant to be untouchable. Their combined wealth could have purchased small countries, yet their names are whispered with both fear and fascination. You think you know their stories. You don't. The streets of Medellin, Colombia, 1975. A young man with ambitious eyes walks through the slums where he grew up. Nobody notices him yet, but Pablo Escobar, son of a farmer and a school teacher, wasn't born into wealth. What separated him from millions of other poor young men was a ruthless vision and an absolute willingness to kill anyone who stood in his way. Pablo didn't just want money, recalled a former associate. He wanted Colombia itself. By his 30s, Escobar controlled 80% of the global cocaine trade. His operation was moving 15 tons of cocaine per day into the United States. The profits, astronomical. At his peak, the Medellin cartel was earning $420 million weekly. The cash flowed in so quickly that Escobar spent $2,500 monthly just on rubber bands to hold his money together. He wrote off 10% of his cash as loss. Billions simply eaten by rats or ruined by water damage in his warehouses. With a fortune estimated at $30 billion, equivalent to over $70 billion today, Escobar built personal zoos, purchased fleets of luxury vehicles, and owned 70 different residences, including massive haciendas. But what elevated him beyond mere wealth was his political strategy. Silver or lead, his infamous ultimatum. Take the bribe or take the bullet. But across the world, another man was building a different kind of criminal empire, one that would outlast him and outthink governments worldwide. They called him the Brainy Don, Semion Mogilevich, a Ukrainian-born mathematician with a genius IQ, understood something Pablo didn't. Visible wealth creates visible targets. While Escobar flaunted his billions, Mogalevich operated like a ghost, establishing sophisticated financial networks across 27 countries. Unlike the flashy Colombian, Mogalevich built his criminal fortune through complex fraud schemes, weapons trafficking, contract killings, and international prostitution rings. His brilliance wasn't in brute force, but in weaponizing capitalism itself. He created criminal ventures that resembled legitimate businesses so closely that even seasoned investigators struggled to distinguish them, noted one FBI analyst. By the 1990s, Mogalevich was washing billions through respected banks in London and New York. The FBI placed him on their 10 most wanted list, offering a $5 million reward for information leading to his capture. Yet he remained untouchable, protected by a sophisticated network of political connections that stretched from Moscow to Washington. But you want to know who truly mastered wealth and power in America's criminal underground? Look no further than the streets of East Harlem. Anthony "Fat Tony" Salerno walked those streets in expensive custom suits, chomping on his signature cigars. What made Salerno extraordinary wasn't just his wealth, estimated at over $1 billion in the mid-1880s, but his business acumen. He transformed the Genovese crime family from traditional racketeering into sophisticated financial schemes. In October 1986, Fortune magazine named the 75-year-old Salerno as America's top gangster in power, wealth, and influence. His criminal empire controlled construction in New York City so thoroughly that virtually no concrete was poured in Manhattan without his approval. The concrete club alone generated hundreds of millions yearly. Fat Tony's brilliance was making legitimate businesses dependent on his criminal enterprise, said one former prosecutor. He didn't just extort, he became essential to New York's economy. But perhaps the most fascinating criminal mastermind operated through one of history's greatest deceptions. Vincent the Chin Gigante, boss of the powerful Genovese family after Salerno's imprisonment, executed the most elaborate ruse in Mafia history. For nearly 3 decades, Gigante wandered Greenwich Village in a bathrobe and slippers, mumbling incoherently, appearing mentally incompetent. This crazy act was so convincing that even his own family claimed he suffered from paranoid schizophrenia. Behind this facade of mental illness, Gigante commanded a criminal empire worth hundreds of millions, ordering executions and running rackets while appearing incapable of standing trial. The Odd Father, as he became known, elevated criminal deception to an art form. His strategy worked for nearly 30 years until 2003, when he finally admitted his insanity was an elaborate act designed to evade prosecution. And the man who would ultimately bring down many of these criminal empires? A prosecutor named Rudy Giuliani. Far from being a crime boss himself, Giuliani became their nemesis, using innovative legal strategies to prosecute the American Mafia in the 1980s. His use of the RICO Act in the Mafia Commission trial resulted in convictions of bosses from all 5 New York crime families, including Salerno. The wealth these crime bosses accumulated remains almost incomprehensible. Escobar's billions were so vast that he reportedly burned $2 million in cash once just to keep his daughter warm while on the run. Mogalevich laundered more than $10 billion through a single Russian bank. Salerno's control of New York's construction industry generated profits that rivaled legitimate corporations. Their stories reveal a dark truth. Criminal wealth often exceeds what's possible through legitimate means. The boundaries between underworld and upperworld blur when billions are at stake. But remember this, for each of these men, their astronomical wealth couldn't prevent their ultimate downfall. Escobar died in a hail of bullets on a Medellin rooftop. Salerno died in prison. Gigante's elaborate deception eventually crumbled. Only Mogalevich remains at large, protected somewhere in Russia, a phantom that global law enforcement still hunts. The question isn't just how they acquired such astronomical wealth, but what this wealth cost them and everyone around them. In the end, what would you do with billions in dirty money? And more importantly, what wouldn't you do to keep it?